I'm Merrill Hillier. I'm 46 years old, and I'm a member here at the Christian Fellowship Church. And this is my significant other, Amanda Hatfield. And you are what? You're
38.
38. Yeah, check. And so we've been together for the last 12 years.
We have 2 kids, Roman and Grace. Roman is 9. Grace will be 8 next month.
Growing up, I did have quite a bit of exposure to the church life. I did get away from the church as I became a teenager. And
it's coincidence because my childhood, I grew up going to the Salvation Church. Once I got older, I kind of drifted off, made my own choices.
By the time that Amanda and I met, life was already kind of all chaos, almost all the time at that point. But there was still a lot of excitement, and a lot of fun, and a lot of adventuring.
We left here and traveled all the way to Alberta in a tent. Yeah. And yeah, it was life before kids, you know. Merrill worked out there, I went and joined, you know, and then I continued working in the nursing field out there. It was our life for probably, 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years or so. But when we came home, we gave up some good jobs, right? And so it was kind of like a financial struggle. When we had kids, it very quickly changed everything, because our addiction didn't slow down. And it's just now we had kids thrown into the mix, and financial hardship and instability, right? And at that point, you know, just by virtue of having kids, you start to isolate socially. You know, you don't see the people that you used to see. And of course, addiction has that effect as well, right? Where your world starts to become quite a bit smaller.
Like, I was never a big drinker, and after I had kids, it became more. It was more of my stress reliever and to kind of block things out, because once the kids, we had both kids, Merle ended up having to go away to Ontario to go to work, and I was by myself with the kids. Numerous nights of just blacking out just to go to bed, and looked forward to that time of night when the kids were in bed, and yes, I can get 2 or 3 drinks in a short amount of time and just go to bed, and it would be a complete pattern every morning and every day. And that's where my addiction got really strong for me, is when Merle went away to work.
I knew that she was back home drinking, and she knew that I was out there drinking, right? Because, you know, I'd be away working, and regardless of how selfish I was, I did miss these guys, and I missed my kids, right? And so I would work and drink and smoke dope, right? We were both miserable and both suffering and just nursing our addiction, you know.
And did that for a long time.
Yeah.
The thing that was our rock bottom that changed everything is Mother's Day. Coincidentally, tomorrow is Merle's 4-year sobriety. Mother's Day 4 years ago, it was a normal morning. The day before, I ended up going to a friend's house and was drinking. Merle couldn't contact me, and he and I had a fight. The next morning, on Mother's Day, it was a normal morning. I went out to my grandmother's to spend Mother's Day with them. Merle came and picked me up. We stopped at the liquor store on the way home. We don't really know what happened from there. I believe, from the grace of God, everything happens for a reason. And it was the worst day of my life, but it was the best day of my life because it changed my life. Mother's Day ended up being a blackout for both of us and turned into a domestic assault and a child abuse. And it resulted in Merrill being arrested and put in jail and ripping our family apart. But if that day did not happen, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have God in our life. We wouldn't have made the positive changes in our life that we have. We wouldn't be the parents that we are today. And it was hard. They didn't take my kids because my aunt stepped in and stayed with me and my kids. Then we were forced to go to the Chairman House. Merle and I were not allowed to have any contact. I knew that that wasn't him, and it never happened ever before. And that day, we still don't know what happened that day.
Like Amanda said, you know, we just both had like a total blackout, right? Which was not uncommon for us, but what was uncommon was the escalation of violence, right? And so when I woke up in the jail cell, I didn't even know where I was at first. No officer would tell me why I was there. And then finally, when I found out that it was because I had assaulted Amanda and my children, right? It was just like, I can't even like explain the feeling, you know, like it was crazy, you know. I had a lawyer explain to me what the charges were and showed me some pictures, and I couldn't believe. I knew that it was something that I must have done, but I couldn't believe that I did that, you know. I had a long history of going to AA, you know, living in recovery houses in years before I even met Amanda, being in detoxes. Something my mother always used to say was, crisis always precipitates change, right? And this particular crisis definitely precipitated change, right? And so that's kind of where, you know, our transformation and our faith story begins is from that night, or that, you know, that day, right, where everything happened. And so just one day, I remember parking the car. I was just going to walk down to the library. I went down to the library, and the library was closed. And all those churches that are all downtown, I would just, I walked up to all the doors, and I kept trying to open the doors, and it was a Saturday, right? And everywhere was locked. So all I really wanted to do was just go and sit in the sanctuary. And so I got in the car, and I was like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was completely overwhelmed. By the time I got out in front of the church here, I was crying that hard that I actually had to pull into this church's parking lot. I just walked up, and I opened the door, and the door was open. And so I walked in, and I didn't know this at the time, but there was two men downstairs, and one of them was Pastor Bruce. And I just remember turning my head and looking to the right and asking him, I said, do you mind, is it okay if I just go into the sanctuary? I think I was crying, right? And they said, yeah, no problem. And I just walked up, they stayed down there, and I walked in there, and I just stood there for a second, and I remember saying to God, like, I don't know if I believe in you or not, or who or what you are. I don't have really any idea, but this is supposed to be your house, and I need some help, right? And that was it. There was no like lightning bolt of, you know, any kind of miraculous saving or anything, you know. And then I just sat down in the pew, and I think I sat there for the better part of like an hour, right? And so after a while, you know, one of the members of our church, he came upstairs and asked if I wanted to talk, and a lot of the pieces of our mutual stories were very similar, and so I connected, you know, in that way, like in a very real sense. He said, well, do you want to come to church tomorrow? And at this point, I was like, man, I got nothing to lose. So I was like, yeah, sure. You know, I was feeling like I felt comfortable and connected with this guy, you know. And I said, sure, I have nothing else to do, right? I thought that I was convinced that Pastor Bruce somehow knew my story and that he was setting up the whole church service geared just for me, you know? But it's just constantly fighting, trying not to cry, you know? And just being like, my heart was pounding out of my chest. Like, I think the second Sunday that I came after that was a service that really spoke to me. And there was, the youth in our church did a skit. Again, I was convinced that somehow this church was doing everything, you know, for like telling my story, you know. And I kept coming to church and I kept going to meetings, and I started feeling like stronger, you know. And I didn't feel like I wanted to drink, and I didn't feel like I wanted to use drugs, and it felt different. It didn't feel like my own resolve. It just kind of started feeling like it was gone. Like I ended up giving my life to Jesus. And I couldn't understand why people in the church, like these respectable people, wanted to have anything to do with me. You know, it floored me, you know? One of the things that I remember the most during that period, because my faith was so new at that time, and recovery was just incredible, you know? In the face of being under house arrest, I never felt so free in my life.
I had a lot of resentment and anger still towards him because at this point, Merrill did get recovery and Merrill was finding God in his life. And I was angry because I was like, well, why are you getting all this good stuff? And I'm the one here picking up the pieces for our kids. But once like child welfare was allowing us to reconcile, we went to counseling, and you know, we finally got to have that professional conversations with people. And it sounds bad, but it was kind of like an ultimatum that he gave me. You're gonna get sober and clean, or there's not gonna be a you and I and our kids.
Yeah.
I got clean and I got sober. I didn't do AA or any support groups. Merrill was my support. It was actually a week after my 1 year sobriety, we got baptized as a family.
Yeah. And
since that day, like, our life it's not great, it's not wonderful, but you know, it's pretty darn good.
It is wonderful.
But you know, like, for us to change things over and to ask for the help and to see the good that God can bring to somebody's life and as a family, it's amazing. And for us to grow together as Christians and bring that to our children is the best gift that we can give them.
Yeah. I mean, we can look back now in our life and see that he was always very active in our lives. Like, very, you know. We just didn't see it. We didn't see it because we weren't looking for it.